Do you hold the world Guinness record for memory? Well, today's guest does. What's up, FlowChat fam? Chris here, CEO and co-founder of FlowChat.com. We're talking to real entrepreneurs that are getting real results, including world Guinness record results for memory. And why is this important for you listening here today? You're going to want to stick around because someone that is an expert literally at memory out of anybody in the entire world, what I care about as a marketer, as an entrepreneur, as a founder, is people remembering my company, as people remembering my content, remembering my brand. Brand is what people say about you, when you're not in the room, if you've heard that expression. And we now can start creating content and showing up in a way where people will remember us and our companies. And there's no one better to have this conversation with other than Dave. Dave, how's it going, my friend?
Doing good. How are you doing, man?
Awesome, man. I'm excited about this topic. I think it's a great use of time to focus on people remembering us. We do all this hard work, we put all this stuff into our business, and if people forget about us, they sure ain't gonna buy from us. So, Dave, we'll start kind of in this memory zone. I'd love to hear more of your background. How you even won the World Guinness Record of Memory? Like, how is that even measured? What'd you do to get it? We'll cover that in the second half, but let's focus on the entrepreneurs and the founders, business owners that are listening right now. How can you help them have their audience remember their brand?
Yeah, so you hit the nail on the head that memory is tied to everything that we would consider success in marketing. So it's not just will they remember you after they see the ad or something like that, or just brand awareness like a Coca-Cola or something like that. The mechanism in the brain of memory is what decides what we're going to pay attention to. So think of this, if you've ever been to a party and, you left the party and you thought, oh, that was a terrible party, it was so boring, but you talked to somebody else and they had a completely different experience. It was exciting, it was energized, it was amazing. Well, the reason why you have two different experiences, or you could also substitute a movie in there, or a concert or whatever. The reason you have two different experiences is because you're focusing on different things. Understanding what your brain does to make that decision of what it's going to focus on essentially is the art of memory. Now, memory experts like me, we spend years and years developing techniques to trick our brains into paying attention to what we want to. In my case, got me a Guinness record. But the same mechanism is innate to all of us. And if you really understand it, it affects the copy that you write, the images that you choose, your branding, logos, just right down to everything you say, even in a podcast.
What are some of the most powerful elements that help with memory?
Well, first off, you want to understand that memory is making connections. So if people approach memory as if it's some sort of just a talent you're born with, then you'll never improve. If you approach memory thinking that it's more like a skill or something that you can hone, then you can actually make tremendous improvement. But the first principle is to understand is that your memory is not just some little bucket in your brain that you throw things and hope that you'll pull something out. Memory is the art of making connections. So if you remember my name, Dave, it's because you made a connection between my name and my face. You see the face, it reminds you of the name. That's what a memory really is. Now we're talking here about what scientists would refer to as episodic memory. When you get into the halls of academia and neuroscience, we do have to make that distinction because there are many different varieties of memory that might surprise you. In science, we're going to focus on just what most people would talk about as a good memory or remembering something, which is episodic, which is I was in a situation and now I remember that situation. I met somebody, I saw a speaker on stage and I remember their name. I read an email and it stuck in my mind. That's the sort of memory that we focus on.
When I hear you say memory is really about making connections, the first thing I think about are stories. And so
Mhm.
as a marketer, as a co-founder, I think, well, what's the story of my brand? What's the story of my, company brand, personal brand? Could be the same, could be different. But I'm thinking about like the emotions and the connection I actually want to communicate and connect with my audience. What's the relationship between story and connection? How do you approach both of those?
Oh, I would have to absolutely say that stories are one of the oldest memory techniques. So one of the things that I encourage my clients to do when they're in the middle of an interview, which I'm not doing right now, I'm being more technical, is to actually tell a story, but do it in the form of an anecdote. And if you really want to be technical, if you want to know the neuroscience, this is something that I discovered, oh man, going on like, I don't want to say how many years ago, like 15 years ago. I sold about $300,000 worth of memory courses in one radio interview, and I realized what really made it stick was that I told a story about my experience, but I was able to tie it into what the listener was paying attention to, and it was actually the host that helped me out a lot. You know, he started asking questions and talking about his experience in school, and that's when I realized that I was spending so much time doing these interviews talking about myself.
Mm.
And the minute I was able to start talking about, yes, something that happened to me, but something that happens to so many other people, when I was able to expand that story, I mean, the sales just rushed in. Which, by the way, I just told you a story which can help you remember the anecdote that I'm
Yeah,
pulling back the layers. I'm like
there we
Deadpool. I'm
go.
like breaking the fourth wall there.
There we go.
But no, that's really true. So when you want to make a connection, try thinking of what the story of your customers' experience is, and then you still tell your story, but you tell it in the context through their eyes. Be aware that they are going through their context, right? In your story, you have so many people who are having great businesses. They have great talent. They have great people. I have an agency that's great people, and we offer a great service. But sometimes sales are not quite there. So the story and the stress that they're feeling is, will this tool take me where I want to go? And if you look at story structure, that's a hero's journey. I'm in a place of comfort, but I want something else. I need to grow. We need to pay people more, that sort of thing. This tool might be the magic Excalibur I pick up, and that'll take me where I want to go. When you tell your story in terms of how your customers experience that way, then they put themselves in the story. So one of the principles of memory, by the way, is personalization. Anytime they feel like they're putting themselves in the scene, they're visualizing themselves using the software, talking to you, interviewing me, whatever it is, then they're 1,000 times more likely to trust and to buy the product.
So powerful. An example of what you're sharing. Recently, I was at an event. It was Funnel Hacking Live International. So, shout out
Mhm.
to Russell Brunson. We've followed him quite a bit over the years. But he was sharing a story, like you were describing, Dave, and and the story was his journey in investing in his first, mastermind type product and experience. And really, what he was doing was conditioning the audience and overcoming objections that they were going to
Mhm.
feel and have when, later that day or like the next day, they were going to be given the opportunity to invest in the mastermind that he is providing. And so, as all sales marketing nerds listening to this right now, what Dave's saying is one of the most powerful things ever. If you want to shorten your sales cycle, if you want to increase your conversion rate, you can share stories about the emotions that you felt that happen to be exactly what your customer is going to feel in their journey in buying your product and service. Hopefully, somebody's catching this right now because it is so powerful that you can communicate in your content, you can communicate in VSLs, video sales letters, or webinars, you can communicate on a sales demo or a sales call, just sharing stories. People remember this. This sticks, like Dave's sharing, which ultimately comes back to connection. So Dave, let's shift gears. You're a PR master, so you built the skill set of memory, but you kind of transitioned into the world of commerce, and you did so in the form of public relations. Can you kind of walk us through like why you transitioned over to PR?
Yeah, well, it was actually a lot of my friends that kind of pulled me into it. I never intended to be a PR guy. I still don't always feel comfortable even with that label. But we do some good work, and we've really taken our clients to whole new levels, gotten them, major national publicity, and that, helps their conversions. But it also feels really good because there's so many brands that we work with, so many individuals that would not really they wouldn't really see the light of day if we weren't able to get them that press. There's so many really talented people out there, and they see their competitors getting, in the paper or on a podcast or, like we do a lot of like financial magazines. So we get people in like Forbes and Inc. and Business Insider, and they see their competitor doing something like that, and they think, wow, I'm much more talented than this person, which we all think. And I should have, gotten that press. So when we can get that for a client, it's almost feels like a little bit of Robin Hood. Like we're getting them into a medium that gets them that exposure and that credibility that they wouldn't get any otherwise. So that's my passion for it. How I got into it, well, I sold a ton of memory courses. I sold it was about $8 million worth of sales total, and 500,000 copies of my books and courses. And I was on over 2,000 interviews and counting. I still do the shows today. I was just in Fast Company last year. Just did, actually, I was just in Spectrum News and CP24 in Toronto just a few weeks ago. So I did a lot of press, kind of came up with a different way to do it. And then I just had so many entrepreneurs come up to me and other PR people saying, hey, how did you get on the Today Show? How'd you get on Regis and Kelly? How'd you get, like I got in the New York Times, And I was just trying to sell some courses and some books and stuff. And I didn't realize that I'd really, come up with a different way of doing things. And so I started coaching people. I hated coaching. Because they weren't doing what I told them to do. So I just hired some people and we started Farrow Communications and hadn't looked back since. It's been 10 years and we're one of the best at getting, I would say, a thought leader the respect and media attention that thought leader deserves.
Gotcha. So moved more of the agency, done with you, done for you direction, and kicking butt there. All right, cool. So, what I'm curious about is your area of expertise is now on the PR side. So if I'm an entrepreneur, business owner listening to this, it's like, how do I leverage you? How do I leverage PR to 10x the growth? No one knows I exist. Like, how do I get on the map, Dave?
Absolutely. Well, the other thing also is if you're a person who's investing in traffic already, then you could be leaving a lot of money on the table with your conversions. So the number one reason why people do PR is to raise their conversions. They raise their credibility. Our online reputation makes a huge difference. So if we're hiring you to be a speaker, like my speaking fee is 10,000. If you want to have a speaking fee like that, then you have to know that when someone Googles your name, then some good stuff is going to show up, right? So your online reputation. And also, it was actually Harvard Business that did a study and found that conversions go up on a website by 48% if they have media logos, if they have actual, interviews from major media outlets. And they don't even have to be huge ones, but the difference between not having it and having it is, it's almost half your sales right there. So that's number one. The other thing is, the way Google has made some changes recently, PR actually gives you a tremendous SEO boost. So we have a number of clients coming to us to get that 1-2 punch. We're getting them the credibility and the online reputation, because once you get, a Inc. magazine or something doing an article on you, then you have this ultimate credibility that is bulletproof. It makes you good at what you do. You can raise your fees, all that stuff. And then if you want to find traffic, if you want to have SEO, then having your backlink on that Inc. magazine article or whatever we've negotiated for you, that then makes Google look at you differently, and you end up with kind of bulletproof SEO that tends to last a lot longer and be a lot more powerful than a lot of the other SEO options. So that's the 1-2 punch that people go for.
What I hear you say, Dave, is it pays to look good. Have that.
Well, I think it's
credible frame.
People. Yeah, no, but people thought that like something like the New York Times would be out of business right now because people can get their news from the internet, et cetera, right? But when you actually look at the number and adjust for inflation, the New York Times is bigger than ever. It's bigger than it's ever been. Most news outlets are bigger media conglomerates now. And you think, well, traditional media is dying because of social media. But then why is it making so much money and why is it getting so much traffic? And the reason is that anybody can pretend to be anything online, right? Yeah. So the internet has created a world where deep fakes are really possible and really real. So it becomes a game of going to a credible source. Like your podcast is a credible source in this world of traffic and everything like that, and direct response, that sort of thing. So they would go to your podcast. If you interviewed somebody, then they'd know that that person is skilled at what they do. That person is credible because, you know, there must be a vetting process you've gone through. You don't just allow anybody on the show. So it's because of that velvet rope that the media gives that completely transforms most people's businesses. If you've gotten no press, you'll see a huge difference. And if you've gotten a little, I mean, we can still get you a whole lot more. You know, it still makes a difference.
PR doesn't always go great for everybody. What are some of the pitfalls we need to avoid?
Okay. I You're really hitting hard with this. Yeah, no, PR has a reputation of being unpredictable. And so when I got into this game, I had to make something that people could count on. So we actually do have a guarantee, but I'll tell you why we're able to have a guarantee. Every other PR company that deals with individuals, especially authors that have no name, they have no guarantee whatsoever. So I don't want to make this into an advertisement for myself, but uh, we decided basically if we don't hit our benchmarks, we do typically 3 pitches over a 3 month period, and if we don't hit the numbers that we're looking for, we'll actually do an extra pitch at no charge. We've only had to do this a few times, but I'll tell you the real secret as to why we're able to do that is because we actually use data in PR, and it's a relatively new thing. I would say even 5 years ago, no one was using data. So what I mean by that is, and you can, anybody who's watching, if you want to do it yourself, try this yourself. If you want to get, you know, some local press, the media, journalists, all of them, they are under a tremendous amount of pressure to get clicks, just like everybody else, just like we are, just like your podcast is, right? So if we pitch a client and we say, hey, this client, Chris Baden, he's amazing, he's brilliant, he's a CEO, that would only get us so far, right? But if I say this client can talk about a current event or a current trend, let's say, you know, Gen Z in the workplace is having a lot of difficulty being successful, or maybe there's more Gen Z entrepreneurs than ever before, or less than ever before, whatever the trend is, right? We look for the data and we find like a trend line that's something's going on with the demographic. And then we say, hey, you know, Chris here can talk about this trend. This is breaking news and people are searching for it. And we actually share Google search data. Google Trends is your friend if you want to talk to the media. So when we tell the media, hey, this keyword in this story is being searched for, and we have an expert that can do an interview with you, then that's basically why they book our clients. We end up booking about twice as many gigs for our clients in the media as the average publicist. That's typically for authors, but the speaker and entrepreneur is in a similar boat there.
I think what you're highlighting is really important for and practical and tactical for everyone to hear and process, spending the time with us today. And it's this: take what you're really, really good at, and how does it relate to current trends? Is kind of what I heard you saying. And so
Yeah, I know.
this,
I know. I'm getting in the weeds with a lot of how we pitch and a lot of things like that. But yeah,
well, that's my job. I'm trying to pull it out of you,
yeah,
Dave, so everyone can,
yeah,
yeah,
there you go.
yeah, we're,
No, I'm telling you things that I don't normally tell everybody on shows like this. So this is like some insider information.
there we go. Say here, this is why you come, here to the FlowChat podcast. So you guys can hear all this. Yeah, no, but I appreciate you sharing these things. It's exactly what I'm curious about, asking about. I know this is what other business owners are asking me about. How do I stand out? How do I build more connection? How do I have people remember my brand and buy my products and service and benefit from it? So, there's always relevant and current trends going on, and how does that pertain to your area of expertise? And so, like, what you did a great job of telling a story earlier and combining your beating, which we need to get to. So there's a couple more things we have to do yet today, but
Yeah.
World Guinness Record books in memory. And you tied that in to business really well in the beginning. When you shared that to me, I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't see the connection between these two. But how you drew those together was like, that was great. That was fantastic. So everyone listening, watching can do the same thing. And it takes just that one extra step of creativity. But what it does is save you all the time of having to make up content, wonder what to say. You get to talk about the same thing over and over and over again that you're an expert at, and you combine it with something that is fresh and relevant, and the whole thing unlocks for you. Hey, people leaning into this, Dave. I know we were talking about your site. Can you share everyone your site on the best place to find you and learn more about this?
Yeah, so I'm at Farrow Communications. I got it on my behind me here, farrowcommunications.com. And we have a ton of information, deep dives on how we've done, what we've done, and a whole bunch of examples of all our clients. We share everything, and you can even actually book a consultation with me directly or one of my team members on there, and we can talk honestly and openly about whether whether you qualify for PR, what kind of shows you could get on, that sort of thing. And speaking of memorable, I'm not sure if you can move the camera here, but check out the logo. It's actually a mnemonic. I don't know
Here,
if you can.
I'll come back here. Yeah.
All right.
Which part?
So so right there. So that's the logo, but it's an F with an arrow coming out, and that's how you spell my name, an F with an arrow.
Oh, nice. I didn't catch
There you
that.
go.
That's witty. I like that.
And that's actually how a mnemonic often works is you have to, you can tell them it and then it'll stick in their mind. So think of anecdotes and things like that. I think one of the big things that we've been covering in this is that memory also takes into account the audience that you're talking to. So so many of us as marketers, we think, we're going to craft the perfect email. We're going to craft it. We're going to talk. We're going to tell our story, our elevator pitch. We're going to refine it and hone it down. But taking the time to look at data, look at what the trends that are out there, and find out what am I fitting into? What am I doing? I've done a few. We do a lot of email marketing as well, and we're using FlowChat now. And I ask a lot of my entrepreneur friends, what's a market that really that is looking for PR, wants to be an expert in their field. And like just the other day, someone was talking to me about interior designers, and we started a campaign going after that. I would never have thought of that in a million years. But if you get one interior designer that is hotshot in their area and they get featured in national press, all of a sudden they can charge twice as much. Same with architects and like just areas I would have never thought of. So look for that data, talk to your friends about it. But so how this relates to memory is, if you've ever tried to study something, you know that you remember things that you can relate to even more. So if you're not making your content kind of fit your audience and be relatable to your audience, then you're missing out on a lot. Even our social media content, we'll do Google searches and find out what trends are going on in different fields before we make a content. That's what you got to do.
So, what record did you beat?
Oh yeah, I got it up on my wall just because people don't believe me. So I memorized the order of 59 decks of playing cards all shuffled together. That's
Hold on,
3,068
hold
cards.
on. 59 decks that include
Yep.
52 cards each.
They're right here, actually, right there.
Oh
They're right
my
there.
God. How many cards total is that?
The 3,068 cards in total.
You memorized in order over
Yeah.
3,000 cards.
Now, I want to tell you, though, I was not born with a good memory. I actually had a bad memory, and I used techniques to overcome that. Now, you think, how is that even possible? I'm going to give you one analogy that'll really kind of hit home and to let you know how you can get an ordinary person even to remember you better. So you think you have a terrible memory, right? But if you saw a movie that you loved, let's say it's like a trilogy, like the Marvel Universe, or like Star Wars or something, the original Star Wars, loved it, right? So you could go home, and if you were tested on that, like in an academic sense, if you were given a multiple choice test, how well do you think you would score? Like pretty well, right?
Yeah, I
Probably
mean,
in
if I
the
loved it, yeah, I'd remember all the scenes and the phrases. Yeah, yes.
right in
Hi.
the high 90s, right? So if you actually look at that objectively, it's a tremendous amount of information, but it was put into a format that your brain loved, that you enjoyed. It was put into that sort of story format, but it also is in a format that you're visualizing. So one of the things that I did actually for my Guinness record is, I can kind of tell you a little bit about how the trick is. If you really, really want to find out, I do have a new book out called Brain Hacker. You can get it on Amazon. And I share some of the techniques on how I memorize cards a little differently than anyone else who's done the technique. But basically, you take the cards, and I'm not memorizing an ace and a spade and a two and a clubs. I'm not memorizing a number and a symbol. What I've done is I've made a code that turns those numbers and symbols into objects. And then I also made another code that turned them into materials. And then by flipping through the cards, I have an object made of a material. And I've just, by visualizing, let's say a pillow made of carbon fiber, I'm visualizing two playing cards all of a sudden. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And so with little tricks like this, I actually have a way to memorize 5 playing cards in one item, and then I insert that into an image in my brain. And I actually have what's called a peg list or a journey method, where I go through all the scenes of the original Star Wars. I am a huge Star Wars nut, and each scene I'll put, say, 10 or 12 of these different objects in it, and then in the next scene I'll put 10 or 12 more, and so on and so forth, all throughout the whole movie. The key here is I can stop and I can kind of close my eyes and kind of scan around the scene and scan around the room and review all of the playing cards that I've memorized. And in a way, I can, with that, by turning it into something visual and putting it into a story I like, basically, I can flip through hundreds, thousands of cards very, very quickly in my head to make sure I've got it just right. So that is kind of the strategy. If people want to rewind that and go over it, it's kind of complex, but it takes a while to learn. It took me 6 months to really practice it and get to that level. But there have been people who have been doing it for a lot longer that tried to break my record a bunch of times, and it still stands today. So I must have done something pretty good.
How long has
Uh,
it stood for now?
oh man, the last record, this book right here is 2009. That's when I broke the last record. I did it twice.
Wow.
And it still stands. So we're talking a while. Yeah.
Yeah, about 15 years. But you broke
I
two
mean, it's
though, right?
59 decks of cards. It's not something. I think
Listen,
they stuck with something easier.
I am hearing what you're saying, and I'm absorbing most of it. But in my head, I'm like, bro, you still memorized over 3,000
Yeah.
cards. I
But
can picture
when I
as
talk
many
about the
carbon
technique,
pillows as I want. I don't know if I can put 3,000 cards in there.
well, but with what I told you about the carbon pillow or like something else, like
Yeah,
you could imagine memorizing maybe one deck of cards or a half a deck, right? With a
yeah.
little bit of practice. You're basically making stories in your head, visualizing it, and it has to be wild and interesting. Here's another little memory tip for the marketers out there. You have to make things interesting and even risky. Uh,
Mm,
too many times people try to play it too
stakes.
safe. That's why it's so hard to do lead generation for corporations. They water down so much of the
Everything. Yeah.
content, and you've got to experiment. You got to have jokes or one-liners in there or something. It can't look too polished. It can't look too this is my opinion. Challenge me in the comments and we'll talk. I'd love to, but from what I've seen, and from what I know about the brain, is you remember and pay attention to the one thing that stands out. If I'm skimming through all of my emails and there's one email that just stands out, then I'm much more likely to read it. Remember when people started putting emojis in emails and stuff, and then everybody did it and it
Like,
didn't stand
whoa.
out and it looked cheap, right? So sometimes what stands out, obviously you can use their name, you can use their company name, things like that. So we have variables, but also just standing out something that uh, shows that you've personalized things even more. So if I'm going after all of the interior designers, for example, if I put some sort of industry term in there, then it'll stand out as not just some hack marketer trying to get their attention. It's like I actually did my research, right?
Yeah. So, but it wasn't just that record that you broke, right? There's two of them out there.
Yeah, before that, it was the same record, but it was I did 49 decks of cards, and then it was broken again. Yeah, it was broken, and then I broke it back. So
Oh, I see here. Okay, so they're the highest bidder. So
yeah,
you
it's the
you
highest.
did
Yeah,
49 decks. You're like, yes,
yeah.
this is awesome. Was it like a year or 2 years later that the next person came in and broke it?
Well, actually, no. Actually, no. I did the first record there um, on this side is the yeah. It still kind of brings me back. But the first record I did was actually just when I was 21 years old, just out of school,
Wow.
and
Okay.
I went for that record, and then it was broken again, and then I had to break it back with 59 decks. It was originally going to be 62 decks, but two of the decks had the red backs, and it would look, once you start shuffling them all in, it would look like a tell. So I
Yeah.
had to get rid of them. And then I was left with 60 decks of cards, and I knew from doing interviews for years I couldn't have 60 decks of cards because for the next 20 years or whatever, I'd be correcting people because they'd think it was 16, right? So that's why I took away another deck and made it 59.
that's a little like hack in itself. You're already thinking
Yeah,
as a marketer, you're like, no, I'm gonna be in the headlines all wrong. It'd be better to be 61 or 59, not 60. Instead,
yeah.
that's already some really good insight there. So I was the piece I was asking about, I was curious, and if you don't remember, it's okay, but it's like 49 decks. Did the next person do like 50 decks or 55 decks or
Couple more, yeah,
okay, a
yeah,
couple more. So you're like, all right, I'm just
yeah.
gonna like blow away by this with 59, the marketing number, and it's oddly enough, it is a lot more memorable. Dave, thank you so much for spending some time with our audience and showing us how to be more memorable with our personal brands, with our company brands and products. Anything else you want to leave the audience with today?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to thank you very much for doing this. And one of the final thing we kind of touched on, but I wanted to really hit home also is one of the hacks that we use, tricks, if you want to add to your copy, especially for FlowChat people, is try adding words that help people visualize what you are telling them. So if you get them to visualize the pain points or visualize the success that they want, there's a principle in the brain that your brain thinks anything that it visualizes, it thinks actually happens on some level. That's why movies are exciting to us, even though we know they're fake. So if you can get them to picture it, you're most of the way home. And with that in mind, I want you to picture yourself typing in my website, farrowcommunications.com, and clicking on the top right-hand corner. It's a nice little square box there to book your consultation with me. And I look forward to seeing you just like this, face to face in a consultation pretty soon.
As you guys got a taste, Dave's among the best in the world at memory and standing out and grabbing attention to grow your business. I appreciate you, Dave, for coming out and sharing with the audience today.
Appreciate you too.
Hey, and thank you for your time and attention. We take it seriously. And this is the place where we're talking to real entrepreneurs that are getting real results, helping you stand out, going further, farther, faster. Stay tuned, of course, for more awesome content just like this. We'll see you guys next time.